It all started on a typical Saturday morning. Emma, my wife, had been acting distant for weeks, her eyes glazing over whenever I tried to talk about our future. I chalked it up to stress from work. Being an executive at a major firm was no joke. But deep down, I knew something was off. We used to be so close, sharing everything from dreams to secrets. But lately, it felt like she was a million miles away. That morning, as we sat in the kitchen having breakfast, Emma cleared her throat and looked at me with a seriousness that made my heart skip a beat. "Dan," she began, her voice steady but her eyes avoiding mine. "I've been thinking a lot about us, about our marriage." My stomach tightened. "Okay, what's on your mind?" She took a deep breath, finally meeting my gaze. "I think we should try an open marriage." I stared at her, stunned. "An open marriage? What are you talking about?" Emma sighed, running a hand through her hair. "I've been reading about it, and it seems like it could be a good way for us to reconnect, to bring some excitement back into our lives." My mind raced. This was the last thing I expected. Reconnect by sleeping with other people? It's not just about sex, Dan. It's about trust, honesty, and exploring new experiences together. It could make us stronger. Stronger? I echoed, my voice rising. Or it could destroy everything we've built. Emma reached out, placing her hand on mine. "Please, just think about it. For us." I pulled my hand away, unable to process what she was suggesting. "I need some air." I left the house, my thoughts a whirlwind of confusion and hurt. An open marriage? It sounded like a recipe for disaster. But as I walked around the neighborhood, I realized I needed to understand where this was coming from. Emma wasn't a bad person. Maybe she truly believed this could help us. By the time I returned home, I had decided to give it a shot, if only to prove her wrong. The first few weeks were awkward. We set ground rules, discussed boundaries, and tried to communicate openly. Emma seemed happier, more relaxed, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. One night, after a particularly tense conversation, I found myself sitting alone in our living room, staring at the framed pictures of our happier days. That's when I got a call from Sarah, Emma's younger sister. Sarah and I had always been close. She was like the little sister I never had. We hadn't spoken much since Emma and I started having problems, but hearing her voice brought a strange sense of comfort. "Hey Dan, I just wanted to check in on you," she said, her voice warm and concerned. I sighed, feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. "Hey Sarah, it's been rough. I heard about the open marriage thing. Are you okay with it? Honestly, I don't know. It feels like I'm losing her." Sarah was silent for a moment. "Maybe this isn't the right solution. Maybe it's just a way for her to justify something else." "What do you mean?" "I don't know, Dan. I just have a bad feeling about this. But I want you to know I'm here for you." "Thanks, Sarah. That means a lot." We talked for a while longer, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe I wasn't as alone in this as I thought. Days turned into weeks, and the strain of the open marriage experiment began to take its toll. Emma and I barely spoke, and when we did, it was strained and awkward. I started spending more time away from home, finding solace in Sarah's company. We began meeting for coffee, then dinners, and soon our conversations became the highlight of my day. One evening, after a particularly difficult day, Sarah invited me over to her apartment. We sat on her couch, sipping wine and talking about everything but my failing marriage. She listened, offering support and understanding without judgment. "Dan, you deserve to be happy," she said softly, her eyes meeting mine. I looked at her, feeling a connection I hadn't felt with anyone in a long time. "So do you, Sarah." Before I knew it, we were kissing. It felt right, like finding something I didn't even know I was missing. We spent the night together, and for the first time in months, I felt alive. The next morning, reality hit me like a freight train. I had crossed a line, but, strangely, I didn't feel guilty. Sarah and I agreed to keep it between us, not wanting to complicate things further. But as the days passed, it became harder to hide my feelings. Emma noticed the change in me, and one evening she confronted me. "You're different, Dan. What's going on? I hesitated, then decided to be honest. I've been seeing someone. Emma's eyes widened. Who? Sarah. The room fell silent. Emma's face contorted with a mix of anger and disbelief. My sister? How could you? You wanted an open marriage, Emma. I thought this was what you wanted. She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. Not with her. This wasn't supposed to happen. For the first time, I saw the cracks in her facade. Maybe this open marriage idea was just a way for her to avoid facing our real issues. But now, it was too late. The damage was done. Over the next few weeks, things escalated. Emma and Sarah had a massive fight, with Emma accusing her sister of betrayal and Sarah defending her actions by pointing out Emma's own hypocrisy. I was caught in the middle, trying to navigate the fallout of our broken relationships. One night, Emma came home drunk, a rare sight. She stumbled into the living room, her eyes bloodshot and filled with rage. Why her, Dan? Of all people, why my sister? I stood up, trying to steady her. Emma, you're drunk. Let's talk about this when you're sober. She pushed me away, her voice slurred but venomous. No, we talk now. You ruined everything. Me? You were the one who wanted this open marriage. Because I was trying to save us, she screamed, collapsing onto the couch in tears. I sat beside her, feeling a strange mix of anger and pity. Emma, I don't think this can be saved. She looked at me, her expression softening for a moment. I still love you, Dan, but I don't know how to fix this. As the weeks turned into months, it became clear that our marriage was beyond repair. The open marriage experiment had failed spectacularly, leaving a trail of hurt and betrayal in its wake. Emma and I decided to separate, and I moved in with Sarah temporarily. The divorce was messy, with Emma and Sarah's relationship shattered beyond recognition. But amidst the chaos, I found a strange sense of peace. Sarah and I had become each other's rock, navigating the storm together. One evening, as we sat on the porch of Sarah's apartment, watching the sunset, she turned to me and smiled. Well, get through this, Dan, together. I took her hand, feeling a warmth I hadn't felt in a long time. Yeah, we will. And for the first time in a long while, I believed it. The fallout from Emma's revelation about wanting an open marriage had already started unraveling the fragile fabric of our relationship. But it wasn't until we decided to separate that the true extent of the damage became apparent. The first few days after moving in with Sarah were a whirlwind of emotions. I found solace in her presence, but the guilt and the chaos left behind were suffocating. One evening, as we sat on Sarah's porch, she turned to me with a worried expression. Dan, how do you really feel about all this? About us? I took a deep breath, looking out at the horizon. I'm confused, Sarah. I love being with you, but everything is such a mess. I never wanted to hurt anyone. She placed her hand on mine, her touch comforting. I know, Dan, but we need to be honest with ourselves and each other. We can't let guilt overshadow our happiness. I nodded, knowing she was right. But the road ahead was still daunting. The next day, Emma showed up at Sarah's apartment unannounced. She looked disheveled, her eyes puffy from crying. We need to talk, she said, her voice breaking. Sarah stepped aside, letting her in. I could see the tension between them, a palpable mix of anger and sorrow. What do you want to talk about, Emma? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She sat down, wringing her hands. I've been thinking a lot about everything. I know I've made mistakes, but I never expected it to come to this. Neither did I replied honestly. But here we are. Emma looked at Sarah, her eyes filled with a mix of betrayal and regret. How could you do this, Sarah? My own sister? Sarah took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. Emma, I never intended for this to happen, but Dan and we found something in each other that we were both missing. I trusted you, Emma whispered, tears streaming down her face. I trusted both of you. The room fell silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air. I wanted to comfort her, to make things right, but I knew it was too late. I think it's best if we don't see each other for a while, Emma finally said, standing up. I need time to process everything. Emma, wait, I called after her, but she was already out the door. Sarah looked at me, her eyes filled with worry. Do you think she'll ever forgive us? I don't know, I admitted. but we need to give her space. The days that followed were a blur of legal proceedings and emotional turmoil. Emma and I met with our lawyers, hashing out the details of our separation. Every meeting was a painful reminder of what we had lost. But amidst the chaos, Sarah remained my anchor. One evening, after a particularly grueling day of negotiations, I collapsed onto Sarah's couch, exhausted. She sat beside me, her presence a balm to my weary soul. "How did it go?" she asked softly. "Awful," I admitted. "It's like reliving the worst moments of our marriage over and over again." Sarah wrapped her arms around me, pulling me close. "We'll get through this, Dan. I promise." Just as we started to find some semblance of normalcy, a new twist emerged. One afternoon, I received a call from Emma's lawyer. He sounded tense, almost apologetic. "Dan, there's something you need to know," he began. "Emma is planning to contest the divorce. She's claiming that you and Sarah have been having an affair for longer than you admit, and that it influenced your decision to agree to an open marriage." I was stunned. "That's not true. We only got involved after Emma suggested the open marriage." "Regardless, she has witnesses and evidence that she claims support her case. This could get very messy." I hung up, my mind racing. Emma was trying to rewrite history, to make it seem like Sarah and I were the villains all along. When I told Sarah, she was equally shocked. "What are we going to do, Dan?" "We'll fight it," I said determinedly. "We have to." The court battle was brutal. Emma presented her case, painting a picture of a husband who had betrayed her with her own sister long before the idea of an open marriage was ever discussed. She brought in friends and acquaintances who testified to seeing Sarah and me together, implying that our relationship had been ongoing for years. Our lawyer fought back, presenting the truth as we knew it. But the damage was done. The court of public opinion had already decided, and it was clear that this was going to be a long, painful ordeal. One evening, after another grueling day in court, Sarah and I sat in silence, the weight of the situation pressing down on us. "Dan," she said softly, breaking the silence. "What if Emma wins? What if she takes everything?" I looked at her, seeing the fear and uncertainty in her eyes. "We'll deal with it, Sarah. No matter what happens, we'll get through this together." She nodded, but I could see the doubt lingering in her expression. The court proceedings dragged on for months, each day more exhausting than the last. Emma's relentless attacks, the mounting legal fees, and the constant stress took a toll on both of us. But through it all, Sarah remained my rock, the one thing that kept me going. One night, after a particularly brutal day in court, I found myself lying awake, unable to sleep. Sarah stirred beside me, sensing my unrest. "Dan, what's wrong?" she asked, her voice filled with concern. "I don't know if I can keep doing this," I admitted. "It's tearing me apart." She sat up, wrapping her arms around me. "We'll get through this, Dan. I believe in us." Her words gave me a glimmer of hope, but I knew the road ahead was still uncertain. As the trial reached its climax, the tension was palpable. Emma's lawyer presented a final, damning piece of evidence, a series of emails between Sarah and me that seemed to suggest a deeper, longer-lasting affair. The courtroom was silent as the emails were read aloud, each word a nail in the coffin of our defense. I looked at Sarah, her face pale and drawn. "We never meant for this to happen," I whispered. "I know," she replied, tears in her eyes. "But it did." The judge's final ruling was devastating. Emma was granted a significant portion of our assets, and the court sided with her claims of infidelity. It felt like a punch to the gut, the final blow in a battle we had fought so hard to win. In the aftermath of the trial, Emma cut all ties with Sarah and me. The once close relationship between sisters was now irreparably shattered. Sarah and I tried to move forward, but the weight of everything we had been through hung over us like a dark cloud. One evening, as we sat on Sarah's porch watching the sunset, she turned to me with a sad smile. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if things had been different?" "All the time," I admitted. "But we can't change the past. We can only move forward." She nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "Then let's move forward, Dan, together." And as the sun dipped below the horizon, I knew that despite everything, we still had each other. And that was enough. The aftermath of the trial was a whirlwind of emotions. The court's ruling left Sarah and me reeling, our lives turned upside down. The house, the assets, Everything we'd fought for was now in Emma's hands. Moving forward seemed like an insurmountable task, but Sarah's presence gave me the strength to keep going. Our first night after the ruling was a sleepless one. We lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the silence filled with the weight of our shared burden. "Dan," Sarah whispered, breaking the silence. "Are we going to be okay?" I turned to her, seeing the fear and uncertainty in her eyes. "I don't know," I admitted. "But I know we have to try." The following weeks were some of the hardest of my life. We moved into a small apartment on the other side of town, far from the memories of our old life. The transition was tough, but Sarah and I leaned on each other for support. We tried to create a new routine, finding solace in the small moments of normalcy. One evening, as we unpacked the last of our boxes, Sarah found an old photo album. It was filled with pictures of happier times, family holidays, birthdays, and random snapshots of our lives before everything fell apart. She sat on the floor, flipping through the pages, tears streaming down her face. "Look at us," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "We were so happy." I knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "We still can be, Sarah. We just need to find our way back." She nodded, wiping her tears. "I hope so, Dan. I really do." The next few months were a blur of rebuilding and healing. We both found new jobs, trying to regain a sense of stability. But the emotional scars from the trial and the fallout with Emma were slow to heal. Sarah and I had our moments of doubt and fear, but we always came back to each other. One night, after a particularly long day at work, I came home to find Sarah sitting on the balcony, staring out at the city lights. I joined her, wrapping my arms around her from behind. "Hey," I said softly. "Penny for your thoughts?" She leaned back into me, her eyes filled with a mix of sadness and hope. "I was just thinking about everything we've been through. It feels like a lifetime ago." "I know," I replied, kissing the top of her head. "But we're getting through it, one day at a time." She turned to face me, her eyes searching mine. "Do you really believe that, Dan? That we'll be okay?" I looked at her, my heart aching with the love and pain we had shared. "Yes, Sarah. I believe that. As long as we have each other, we'll be okay." Despite our efforts to move on, the past continued to haunt us. Emma's presence loomed over our lives like a dark shadow. She had cut all ties with Sarah, but the knowledge of her betrayal lingered, a constant reminder of the pain we had caused. One afternoon, as I was leaving work, I received a call from Emma. My heart raced as I answered, unsure of what to expect. "Dan," she began, her voice cold and distant. "I need to talk to you." "What is it, Emma?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Can we meet? There's something I need to say." I hesitated, unsure if I was ready to face her. But something in her voice told me this was important. "Okay. Where?" We agreed to meet at a small cafe downtown. When I arrived, Emma was already there, sitting at a corner table, looking more composed than I had seen her in months. "Thanks for coming," she said as I sat down. "What do you want, Emma?" I asked, trying to keep my emotions in check. She took a deep breath, her eyes locking onto mine. "I wanted to apologize. For everything. For how things ended. For the trial. For the way I treated you and Sarah." I stared at her, stunned. "Why now, Emma?" "Because I realized I was wrong. I was hurt and angry, and I let that consume me. But I've had time to think, and I see things more clearly now." Her words hung in the air, a mix of regret and sincerity. "Emma, I appreciate your apology, but the damage is done. We can't go back." "I know," she replied, tears welling in her eyes. "I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry, truly." I nodded, feeling a strange sense of closure. "Thank you, Emma. I hope you find peace." After our meeting, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Emma's apology didn't erase the past, but it allowed me to start letting go of the anger and resentment that had been eating away at me. When I told Sarah about it, she seemed relieved as well. "Maybe this is a sign," she said, her eyes hopeful. "A sign that we can finally move on." "I hope so," I replied, taking her hand. "We deserve to be happy, Sarah." As the months passed, Sarah and I continued to rebuild our lives. We found a new rhythm, a sense of normalcy that had been missing for so long. But the emotional toll of everything we had been through still lingered. One evening, as we sat on the balcony watching the sunset, Sarah turned to me with a serious expression. "Dan, I've been thinking a lot about us, about our future." "What do you mean?" I asked, feeling a knot of anxiety in my stomach. "I mean, we've been through so much, and I think it's time we start focusing on what we want. What makes us happy?" I nodded, understanding what she was getting at. "You're right, Sarah. We need to start living for ourselves." She smiled, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "So, let's do it, Dan. Let's make a plan for our future, together." We spent the next few weeks talking about our dreams and goals, rediscovering the things that brought us joy. It was a process of healing and rediscovery, a way to reclaim our lives from the shadows of the past. One weekend, we decided to take a trip to the coast, to get away from everything and just be together. We rented a small cottage by the beach, spending our days walking along the shore and our nights talking by the fire. On the last night of our trip, as we sat by the fire, Sarah took my hand and looked into my eyes. "Dan, I love you. More than anything. And I want to spend the rest of my life with you." Tears filled my eyes as I realized the depth of her words. "I love you too, Sarah, and I want the same." Returning home, we felt a renewed sense of purpose. We started making plans for our future, setting goals and working towards them together. It was a slow process, but each step forward felt like a victory. One evening, as we sat on the balcony, Sarah turned to me with a smile. "You know, I think we're going to be okay." I smiled back, feeling a warmth in my heart. "Yeah, I think so too." And as the sun set on another day, I knew that despite everything we had been through, we had found our way back to each other. The future was still uncertain, but with Sarah by my side, I was ready to face whatever came next. The next few months were a time of rebuilding and renewal. Sarah and I focused on strengthening our relationship, finding joy in the little moments, and planning for a future that was finally starting to look bright. We had both been through so much, but together, we found a way to heal and grow. One Saturday morning, as we sipped coffee on the balcony, Sarah turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "Dan, I've been thinking, what if we moved away, started fresh somewhere new?" I looked at her, considering the idea. "You mean leave this city?" "Yes. A new city, a new start, away from all the memories and the people who know our story." I nodded slowly. "That sounds like a good idea, Sarah. A fresh start could be just what we need." We spent the next few weeks researching cities, looking for a place that felt right. We finally settled on Portland, a city known for its vibrant culture and beautiful landscapes. The idea of starting over in a place where no one knew us was both exciting and daunting, but we were ready for the challenge. The move was a whirlwind of packing and goodbyes. It was bittersweet leaving behind the life we had known, but the promise of a fresh start kept us going. On our last night in the old apartment, we sat on the floor amidst the boxes, reminiscing about everything we had been through. "We've come a long way," Sarah said, her voice filled with emotion. "Yes, we have," I agreed, taking her hand. "And now we're ready for the next chapter." Arriving in Portland felt like a dream. The city was everything we had hoped for, vibrant, welcoming, and full of opportunities. We found a cozy apartment in a charming neighborhood, and slowly we began to build our new life. One evening, as we explored our new surroundings, we stumbled upon a quaint little cafe. It quickly became our favorite spot, a place where we could sit for hours talking about our dreams and plans. "Dan," Sarah said one evening, her eyes sparkling with excitement, "I think we should open our own business." I looked at her, intrigued. "What kind of business?" "A bookstore and cafe, a place where people can come, relax, and find a sense of community." I smiled, the idea taking root in my mind. "That sounds perfect, Sarah. Let's do it." Starting a business was no small feat, but we were determined. We spent months planning, finding the perfect location, and renovating the space. It was hard work, but it was also incredibly rewarding. The day we opened our doors, we felt a sense of accomplishment unlike anything we had ever experienced. The bookstore and cafe quickly became a beloved spot in the neighborhood. We met so many wonderful people, each with their own stories and dreams. It was a place of healing and joy, not just for us, but for everyone who walked through the door. One evening, as we closed up shop, Sarah turned to me with a smile. "I think we've finally found our happiness, Dan." I pulled her close, feeling a deep sense of contentment. Yes, we have. Despite the success of our new life, the past still had a way of creeping back in. One day, I received a letter from Emma. It was unexpected, and as I opened it, I felt a mix of curiosity and apprehension. "Dear Dan, I hope this letter finds you well. I wanted to reach out and let you know that I've been doing a lot of soul-searching since everything happened. I realize now that I was wrong to blame you and Sarah for our problems. The truth is, I was unhappy and didn't know how to deal with it. I've been seeing a therapist, and it's helped me understand a lot about myself and my actions. I wanted to apologize again for everything I put you through. I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me. I also wanted to let you know that I've decided to move away as well. I need a fresh start, just like you and Sarah. I wish you both all the happiness in the world. Sincerely, Emma." Reading her words, I felt a strange sense of closure. Emma's apology and her decision to move on were the final pieces we needed to fully let go of the past. Life in Portland continued to flourish. The bookstore and cafe became a cornerstone of the community, and Sarah and I found joy in the simple pleasures of our new life. We spent our weekends exploring the beautiful Oregon landscape, hiking, and discovering hidden gems around the city. One afternoon, as we sat on a hill overlooking the city, Sarah turned to me with a smile. "Dan, I think it's time we start thinking about our future." I looked at her, curious. "What do you mean?" She took a deep breath, her eyes shining with hope. "I mean, starting a family. We've built this beautiful life together, and I think we're ready to share it with someone else." Tears filled my eyes as I realized how far we had come. "Yes, Sarah, I think we're ready too." The decision to start a family brought a new sense of excitement and anticipation. We began planning, dreaming about the future, and preparing our home for the new addition. It was a journey filled with hope and joy, a stark contrast to the pain and turmoil of the past. One evening, as we sat on the balcony watching the sunset, Sarah turned to me with a contented smile. "Do you ever think about how far we've come, Dan?" "All the time," I replied, wrapping my arm around her. "We've been through so much, but it brought us here, and I wouldn't change a thing." She leaned into me, her eyes filled with love. "Neither would I." A year later, we welcomed a beautiful baby girl into our lives. Holding her in my arms for the first time, I felt a sense of completeness that I had never known before. Sarah and I looked at each other, tears of joy streaming down our faces. "We did it," she whispered. "We made it through everything, and now we have her." I nodded, my heart overflowing with love and gratitude. Yes, we did. As the years passed, our family grew and our lives continued to blossom. The pain of the past faded into distant memory, replaced by the joy and fulfillment of our new life. We faced challenges, just like any other family, but we faced them together, stronger than ever. One evening, as we sat on the porch of our new home, watching our daughter play in the yard, Sarah turned to me with a smile. "Do you remember when we first talked about moving to Portland?" I nodded, a smile tugging at my lips. "It feels like a lifetime ago." She leaned her head on my shoulder, her eyes filled with contentment. "We've come so far, Dan, and I wouldn't change a thing." I kissed the top of her head, feeling a deep sense of peace. "Neither would I, Sarah. Neither would I." And as the sun set on another beautiful day, I knew that we had found our happiness. The journey had been long and filled with hardships, but it had brought us to a place of love and fulfillment. Together, we had built a life worth living, and the future was bright.